Welcome back to the ridge. I'm at a pretty cool state once again. Of course, it's always pretty cool when I'm out here, I think. I can hear turkeys talking, crickets, and wind. That's about it. But yeah, I've got multiple components already milled. I didn't catch a lot of that video because I was trying to focus on, I didn't catch a lot of that on video because I wanted to focus on making sure I was doing things right, because it's not good to waste a white oak 8x8 by making some wrong measurements and just cutting into them, because it's a lot of labor from taking the tree down to dragging it up to the mill yard and turning that log into an oversized chunk of wood to work from, and then putting it back on the mill and turning it into the actual 8x8 that it is, and then doing the joinery. That's a lot of labor, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of value in it. And if I were to buy one of these, I don't even know what that would cost. Maybe one of you can tell me. A 14-foot 10x10 8x8 piece of white oak delivered. I don't know what that would cost, but I'm sure it's not cheap. But anyway, this is a video I'm piecing together. Not a lot of description, but I'll try to get some cuts on video. And I think I may have a few, but like you can see, this post here, it is ready to start fitting together. I've got one more post to mill, which I'm going to work on today, and that'll make my first bent. This is a purlin, this is a purlin, this is a floor girt. And then, yeah, get that second post done. I'll put some holes in it for 1 inch oak dowels, and then I'll start fitting stuff together, final fit and finish, make it all work. And then I've got some wind braces done. I've got a couple other pieces I need to mill that are going to engage with this that need fit once it's up. And I got to do the draw boring and some other things. But you got to do all that work before you raise your first bent. So by the time you're finishing your first bent, you're starting on your next bent and making sure that all fits. I don't have the storage area or the ability to just assemble all my stuff and raise it all at once. I'm going to be raising it in sections because I'm trying to use my mini excavator and not rent a crane to do the assembly. And so yeah, it's a kind of a backwards process, but I'm one guy and I don't have a team, and that's how I got to do it. And you'll have to do yours some other way, maybe not. But I think I got all the tools I need, and I got grit and determination, and sometimes a bad attitude, but mostly a good attitude. And now I'm running my mouth. So here we are. Thanks for watching. If you don't mind, stay tuned. I'll see you. I have started the joinery of my timber frame, and something that I do, which you've probably seen in the past if you're that deep into my channel, I take my three-dimensional drawing, I use SketchUp, and design the whole house in that, and then individually each piece do the joinery in, and then I make my field drawings. I can pull out of SketchUp a post, and this one is 2C, and I pull all faces of that and label them, and I transfer that to the post as I best see fit out of that piece of lumber, and I laminate them so if it rains a little bit or whatever, they stay pretty decent to work off of. But it's a great free cloud-based service, SketchUp. I've got a background in mechanical drawing all the way back to where you used a pencil and scales and I forget what it's called now, but the little arm, you'd roll around the table and you'd have your vertical and horizontal, draw your stuff out and do your dimensions. But this took a little bit of learning because you're essentially drawing shapes and adjusting them to size, and then you draw on those. But it's a neat resource, and like I said, you can pull it out and paste whatever you made onto a different sheet and pull all the different faces and do your dimensioning that way. Yeah, laminate it so it doesn't get janked up, and then I bring all these out for each section. Some of these are repeats. Like, I'm gonna call that purlin. There's multiple of these, so I only need to print one of those. But all the posts are individual. There's another purlin piece, and I've got 4 of those, so those are all the same. And then I got some girts. I've only got 4, let's say 2, 4, 8 floor girts that tie into the corners, and they're a little different here and there. But all the ones that run down the center, they're essentially the same. So you don't need to print a whole lot of these, depending on the complexity of your structure, but that's what I do. Here's a post on the mill bed. What I've done with all of my timbers is I've milled them initially a 1/2 inch oversized both directions. Once I select one, I put it on my mill and I just skim down to 8 inches by 8 inches, looking for the best material and trying to avoid any issues or blemishes or knots in the wood. And on this side, I've got some wane here, and I still have some sapwood in there. This is the longest post I have to do. The rest of them are 2 feet shorter than this one. But this one, I need to lay out to where any of the structural components that tie into it are either on the opposite side of this wane or in an area where there's not a bunch of ties coming into it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Somewhere where it's not going to affect the timber negatively. So the first thing I do is I start laying out the ends with the overall length, and I use a 24-inch framing square to do all of my layouts on the post. And then I use a piece of keel or crayon, and then I start marking what I'm cutting off. I'm not going to cut that off now. I actually use this if I got a pocket or something that's close, pocket or a mortise that's close to the end. I leave that on there for layout and milling and such. And once I've got everything laid out, I'm continually double checking and triple checking all of my measurements before I make any cuts. And some of these ends, say if I've got a mortise here, my chainsaw mortising machine clamps on here, and I want to make sure I've got enough material to clamp to. I selected, I got a check coming in here from the bottom, so I wanted as much of that out as possible. But anyway, yeah, leave that on there, mark it that it's drop, and then continue laying out. But that's the first step I do, is do the overall length. And this one is 12 foot 10 1/4. And once again, I located the best piece out of this. So I got some checks coming in here. I want to drop those off, but I leave that all there until I'm absolutely ready to start cutting on the beam, the timber, or the post, or the piece of lumber, using my field drawings. So I've got several mortises coming in this section here, and then I got this is for an eave, for a 6x6 that mortise is in there. And then I've got 2 floor girts that engage here. So need stability at the bottom. Wind load will affect this mostly, down close to here. And then this is structure for the roof, wind braces and such. So I'll pick out the best location for these based upon the piece of timber that I have. Based upon that wane I described in the previous section, I've determined the faces. This will be the north face, that'll be the east face, south, and west. I always describe that because I'll flip this numerous times, and I want to make sure that I'm working on the north side or the east side or the west side or the south side. So that's my next step. So I've determined that this wane is going to be lower in the structure, and I do not think once everything's engaged and everything's locked together that's really going to affect anything. So just a little bit of sapwood there in that one section, but I will I'll use a draw knife and I'll rake out this little bit of bark here, and we'll be good to go there. I've got a floor member coming in here at 2'9", but it will engage its pocket towards the outside of the beam into that, or post into that good wood. Got one coming in here, and I got one coming in here. That's the highest one from grade, those two. So that's what I've determined, and now I've got my faces to work on. Now I've got all of my mortises and tenons established. I throw a big Creole X on things that go away. And at this point, I'm going to work each face and chisel out my mortises for my mortising machine, the chain mortiser, and I'll get those done. Whatever your deepest cut is, cut it first, and then come in and do your shallower cuts. And I'll do these on the sawmill. So I'll mortise that tenon pocket, and then come back in and mill out its housing. So that's the next stage. But I got all four sides done, and here you can see this wane that'll go away. And I managed to just miss that wane with my floor girts that are coming in, and my tenons are going into the stronger parts of the piece of the wood there. So there you can see a little bit of sapwood, which I've drawn out there with the keel on both sides. So the only thing engaging that wane are two floor girts over here, but they're not really getting into it. So that's where we are. from the other end. Okay, this mark I'm doing is I'm gonna chisel out a pocket for the saw blade on the sawmill to set in to finish this cut. And essentially I'll have to spin this beam around. Then once this is chiseled out, I'll drop the sawmill blade into the bottom of that and finish this cut of this house. So I'll make some kerfs here. Now you could do this all the way across if you don't have a sawmill, but I got a sawmill and I'm going to take advantage of it. Clear these out. It's a 1-inch house, so I set my saw to 1 inch. Bit of a knot in there. There we go. I'll do that from the other side off camera. What I'm working on here is a pocket for a brace that comes out and carries the eaves that gets a big wind brace out there. But it's a 6x6, so I'm describing the lines with a chisel, and then I will come in and I will mortise out the pocket for the tenon, and then I got a router set up, and I'll come in and 1 inch deep route out all of this surface after that mortise is done, and then I'll come back in and clean up the edges with a chisel. So right now I'm describing those lines. Okay, that's done, so I'll bring the chainsaw mortiser in and do that fella. All right. Once you figure out your system on your project, you can set the depths of all your gizmos. Easy, sugar, hands are cramping. And here's where it would be a bad idea to go ahead and do all the joinery on this end, because I need to plunge all those first, and you need these clamps on there to make that happy. And being a tool guy, I've already found some features on this that could be better. It's sold in America, but it's marked out in metric system, millimeters or whatever the hell you want to call them, centimeters, I don't know. But essentially what I've done is scribed over that my starts and stops. For where the chain actually comes in contact. So I'm going to fire up the generator and get started on this. Now this part's a little tedious because I'm routing out a 1-inch deep pocket with this router, and it's a little powerful and aggressive, and hogging out a bunch, it can get away from you. I tried going a little depth at a time, but honestly it just works out to make it happen. So, and you can't see real good in there either. So here we go. So essentially, I replaced the foot plate of this router with a, what the hell is going on? My music. I replaced the router plate that was originally on there with a piece of 1/4-inch Lexan, polycarbonate. And you can see through it, and it provides a pretty good stable base for this. And what I've done, I'll show you. I've got this routed out 1 inch deep, close to the lines, and I'll use my chisel to finish that up. And then there's a mortise for a eave beam. And here you can see I've got that all chiseled out for a 6x6 to come in there.
raised it.
Yep. And that's the fast way to cut out that house. Ray, what are you doing?
I'm packing wax into these joints.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks. I'm sealing them.
Do you know what that wax helps it do?
Not shrink fast.
Right, keeps it from drying out fast. Everybody knows that.